Hello there, folks. I'll get straight to it here and say I hate Jeremy Kyle, and I'm not ashamed to say that one bit. He is a scourge on society, perhaps differently today than he was when presenting that ghastly, awful, wretched, rotten ITV programme, appropriately named after himself, which pitted the most unfortunate, impoverished people in society against each other, further ruining their lives in the process of lining his own pockets to the tune of millions of pounds. Jeremy Kyle genuinely believed he was better than all of his guests. Indeed, he even saw himself fit enough to be their judge and jury. A man took his own life as a direct result of something that occurred on Kyle's show. Something that wounded the gentleman so badly he felt there was no other way out than to take his own life. It all revolved around a polygraph test, or what bear-baiting TV shows prefer to call a lie detector test. No prizes for guessing why they do that. These tests were performed on the regular on Jeremy Kyle's show, and he seemingly delighted in delivering the news that the person being tested had been proven a liar. The way he spoke to these people was utterly repulsive. However, anybody with a basic knowledge of either law, science, or both will be aware of how unreliable polygraph test results are. The best case scenario is they are 90% accurate, which means in every 1 in 10 occasions, Jeremy and his production team were reading out false, potentially life-ruining results as if they were fact. The worst case scenario suggests polygraph results are only 50% accurate, which means it is no more reliable than tossing a coin, which may have resulted, and think about this, in up to half of all guests being read false, potentially life-ruining results being presented as fact for the benefit of entertainment. It was only a matter of time before a tragedy unfolded, although I suspect there were many more prior to the one that finally brought the curtains down on this awful show. It ran for some 14 years and some 3,500 episodes. People will look back on this period of history in years to come with complete horror. They will rightly question how TV programs like the Jeremy Kyle Show came to be. My answer to that would be simply, the stars aligned for the sickos in television production. Poverty became normal. The desire for fame, even if it was some kind of low-level notoriety, became normal. And from the perspective of the audience, the desire to witness people worse off than themselves airing their dirty laundry became normal. Political conditions certainly aided the success of the Jeremy Kyle Show. Indeed, although the show commenced in 2005, there were already signs the neoliberalism rot was beginning to take its toll on the least well-off. It's no coincidence the show peaked during the austerity years when suffering was at its most rife. You're probably wondering why I'm saying all this. Indeed, if you're a regular watcher of my videos, you will know I can occasionally break into a story like this. But there is generally a point to every single one of them. I try not to just talk for the sake of talking. The point is as follows. If I were Jeremy Kyle, and I was aware of the damage I had caused to so many people, I would be doing my utmost to either put it right, or having some self-respect by staying out of the public eye for the rest of my days. Instead, Jeremy Kyle blames ITV for throwing him under the bus and essentially erasing him from history. There are no obvious signs of regret or remorse. People who work with Jeremy Kyle described him as having a messiah complex, and I go as far to suggest one doesn't need to have worked with him to be aware of that. So, I guess now Jezza has no impoverished, unfortunate people left to berate. They do exist, of course, but that gravy train has derailed. He has taken the obvious step of becoming an employee of Rupert Murdoch. And when there are no unfortunate, unemployed people left to pit against each other, I suppose the next best group to pick on is the just about managing people, or the working class, those who have been walloped most by the cost of living crisis and are doing the very best they can to get by. That leads me very nicely onto the subject of striking teachers. They were out on their picket lines last week fighting for what is right. Not only a pay increase for themselves, which they absolutely deserve, but also to ensure their budgets aren't yet further cut by this completely pathetic dead duck government. Jeremy Kyle was hosting a show on Talk TV on Friday morning. He invited a secondary school science teacher onto the show to discuss the strikes. And just in case you weren't certain Kyle is just as odious as he ever was, get a load of how he treats this very pleasant female teacher who is only exercising her hard-fought human right to withdraw her labour. This is all the more stomach-churning considering she is a teacher, a force for good, being spoken to like crap by an egomaniacal, self-centred narcissist. Let's finally take a look.
Here we go. I'm just going to try and control myself here. Schools in England are facing another day of disruption as teachers from the National Education Union strike for the second day this week. It's part of their ongoing row with the government over pay. Although when you ask them, it's not about pay, it's about conditions. Joining me now is Faye Curran, a secondary school science teacher from Essex, who is striking. Faye, good morning. Welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Morning.
I'm going to try and be as balanced as I can. Are you supposed to be at school? You're on strike now, yeah?
Yeah, we're on strike today. We're out at the picket line at the moment.
Why?
Because schools' budgets have been cut for the last 12 plus years. And as I'm sure you already know, although teachers have been offered a small pay rise, the reason that we're all out of our classrooms today is not to put money in our own pockets. It's to ensure that our schools are properly funded, because at the moment over the country we have schools which are unsafe because of the state of the buildings. We have classrooms that don't have teachers in front of them because there just isn't enough funding to have the right number of teachers, to have the right number of teaching assistants. And the reason that all of teachers are out of their classrooms today is to change that situation.
Let me do this in a different way, because what I do try and do is foster a debate, and I'm good and pleased that you've come on. This is from Brian for you, Faye Curran. My kids have now had 7 days off due to the strikes in the last 2 months. During the pandemic, they didn't go to school for a total of 8 months altogether. These teachers can claim that they care about my kids, but you can't get around how selfish they are being at this point. And this lady's already annoying me because she's smiling whilst not being in school when she should be teaching my kids. How do you answer that, Faye? That's for you to answer, not...
Right, so you may not have observed what just happened there. Some of you may, and congratulations if you did. But Jeremy Kyle was indeed reading a contribution from his screen from a person called Brian. But this contribution came no more than a minute and a half into the interview. So you are well within your right to ask yourself how this Brian character was able to write such a lengthy contribution, send it over to Talk TV, the folk at Talk TV decide it is worthy to be read out on air, and then send it across to Jeremy Kyle, all in the space of 90 seconds. Well, I'll tell you exactly what just happened there, and I'll play it again so you can see it for yourself. Jeremy was indeed reading a contribution from a chap called Brian, but it had arrived much earlier. And the part about this lady already annoying him and the smile on her face was in fact Jeremy Kyle's own thoughts, tacking it onto the end of Brian's contribution like the vile piece of work he is. And you can tell he is doing this because he starts speaking directly to camera and barely looks back at his screen. What more can you say about this awful piece of trash? Is there not some kind of Ofcom rule against pretending your own views are actually those of a listener? There bloody well should be, if not. If I sent something into a TV or radio station and they read it out and then tacked their own thoughts onto the end, I'd be absolutely pissing raging. And why can't she be happy? Why must she be default miserable? Why must she have a grimace on her face? Let's just play that again, alright?
and pleased that you've come on. This is from Brian for you, Faye Curran. My kids have now had 7 days off due to the strikes in the last 2 months. During the pandemic, they didn't go to school for a total of 8 months altogether. These teachers can claim that they care about my kids, but you can't get around how selfish they are being at this point.
Brian's contribution is now over. This is now Jeremy Kyle's contribution.
And this lady's already annoying me because she's smiling whilst not being in school when she should be teaching my kids. How do you answer that, Faye? That's for you to answer, not for me.
My kids have also been out of school for 7 days. I have 2 kids. And what I will say to that is that we can't only think about this year. Yes, there are kids missing, trips, sports days, etc. this week. I'm aware that that is happening. But I'm so aware that as we move into the next few years, if we have less and less and less teachers, which is what's happening, we're falling short of the recruitment target for teachers by more and more every year, then our children going forward will have less and less of what they should be getting at school. And that's
so it's not about money, it's about conditions in the school, it's about caring about the kids' education. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I am saying that it is, in a sense, about money, but it's about money being given to the schools so that they can properly fund the activities of the school.
So how much of your argument is about your own pay packet and how much is about the school and the funding, as you said, and making them safe and all these things that you said? What's the split? Is it about your pay packet or is it about the kids?
It is, for me, about having the pay that we are being given funded by the government, because what's happened is that the pay rise that we've been given this year already of 3%,
how much?
Was not funded by 3% at the beginning of the year, was not funded by central government, which means that it's had to come out of school budgets in the same year that obviously the schools are facing the same cost of living, energy bills crisis as everyone else. And the effect that has had on schools has been devastating, and it's only going to get worse next year.
Okay, so let's take that argument, because I speak to people all the time who say that, in real terms, I've had a decrease in my money and I should be given more and all that sort of thing. What I would say and I said this to the rail strikers, and I say it to you, and I'm not disrespecting you by saying this, I hope. Are you completely and utterly tone deaf? That's what worries me about unions, right? I'm not against that. There should absolutely be the right to go on strike, to protest and whatever. Had this conversation with nurses. You've just said it's about pay and it's about conditions. Absolutely fine. There are people watching this, right, who have already been up for 2 hours or in the middle of the school run will do 8 hours. I call them jams, just about managing. Barely will they be able to pay their bills, Faye, right? Barely will they be able to keep their heads above water. And I know you might not like what I'm going to say. They're going to go, they get 13 weeks holiday, and she stood outside a school with a smile on her face when my kids missed nearly 2 years of an education. That's the argument that you have to win. Do you understand that?
Like bollocks, that's an argument she has to win. Like bollocks, that's the argument unions have to win. What a load of crap. I'm a union member. I couldn't care less what the public think of me. Couldn't care less. It's not important one bit. Not at all. Unions are there for their members. They're not there to win ideological wars against people like Jeremy Kyle. Look at his stupid face. I hate him so much. There just isn't a worse person in the United Kingdom. I'm just going to say it. Outside of course, prisons. Although, even that's debatable, really.
Yeah, I do understand that. And I think that the thing is that, as I've said, I'm not here for my own wages. And I am also aware that there are thousands of other workers, especially across the public sector, who are also struggling to pay their bills and who also need to have a pay rise. It's down to the government to ensure that the public services are properly funded and that everybody, the workers and the working class are able to survive. You're right that people getting up and doing 2 hours in the morning, sorting out their kids, getting them to school, doing an 8-hour shift and coming home should not be in the position of having to struggle. We shouldn't be pitted against each other. The teachers and the parents of the students are on the same side.
Before Benedict jumps in, I've got a couple of other questions for you, which is brilliant. Mitch in North London, have you got any of your strikes planned during your 6-week school holiday?
You believe what an absolutely bloody stupid question that is. It's ridiculous it's been sent in, and it's even more ridiculous it's been read out.
How would that work? I can't withdraw my labour on a day when I'm not supposed to be at school.
Would you be all right dropping your pension to the level of a normal worker in order to get your pay rise?
I don't think that is a fair comparison. I think that the government should be funding the pensions and the wages and the services.
But you're saying the government should fund everything. Where's the money going to come from in a cost of living crisis? I'm not denying I've tried to be as balanced as possible. The people...
Sorry to keep interrupting, but how dare he say he's tried to be as balanced as possible? He's insulted her time and time again. He's passed off his own thoughts as the thoughts of a viewer about her smiling. How dare she smile? How dare she be happy? Pathetic.
People have a right to say they want more money. But what are we going to do? Print more money and make inflation higher? I understand also, by the way, that nurses who save lives and teachers that give an education. But the fact of the matter is, at this moment in time, am I right, Benedict, or what?
I'm going to say two things, and this might surprise you because they're in favour of what Faye is saying. The first is actually teachers do not have holidays of the same length of the children, because actually whilst your children are on holiday, teachers need to go on retraining courses and they need to plan the lessons.
I know that. I'm talking about explaining that to people who are about to do 12 hours in a factory. And they have to do some marking.
This is the second point. That is that, in my opinion, education is actually the most important thing, ahead of things like the health services.
Yep.
I don't think that we should be cutting pay on educating your children, but giving lots of people free access to healthcare. I think we get our priorities wrong. But this is the key thing. And Faye will know this because she's not stupid, because teachers are not stupid, but they're also very politically engaged. As you said, where does the money come from? She said, I don't want to pit people against each other. By definition, we have to make some hard choices in this country because we can't afford all of these things. Now, I'm actually in favour of giving more money to teachers and to schools. But what are we going to cut? And that is the question that I would like answered. And also, how are we going to find the money? Because we don't have it. We don't have economic growth in this country. The key thing that will drive economic growth is lower energy costs, and that means fossil fuels, and house building, and that's going to upset a lot of people and cause a lot of environmental damage. Those are the two things that will lead to growth, and that is how we will pay people. In the meantime, other people are going to have to lose out. So whilst I'm sat here saying I actually do think teachers and schools should get more money, I would like to know what it is that we are going to cut.
Faye?
I think, again, that the question doesn't really fit the answer, because it isn't that we need to cut anything that is specific to, what the people and the ordinary people, the working class, need. What we need is to have... Inflation isn't driven by workers' wages, it's driven by profiteering energy companies. We could easily... The government absolutely does have the power to resolve this situation in favour of the public, and it is a political choice not to.
That is the
and just
problem.
While I'm still speaking, I just want to let you know as well, because a couple of people have asked about this, why I'm still smiling while I'm out on strike today. It's because even though the government has put us in a terrible situation, it's because I still have hope. That's why I'm smiling. That's why I'm here.
Let me read someone else as well. Sean in Somerset. How is it okay for teachers to strike for so many days this year in term time with no punishment? Yet if I take my kid out of school in term time, the school has a go at me. Answer that one, Faye, if you can.
So I'm assuming that the punishment that parent's talking about is that they're fined, and there is a financial penance for teachers not being in school. We don't get paid for that day.
So you're not being paid for today. So this is important to give both sides there. That's how much you believe in what you're doing. That would be a fair point, right?
Is this idiot only just worked out people on strike don't get paid? Or is he being utterly disingenuous? It's hard to know. There's not much going on inside his head. That blank stare says it all.
Yes.
What's a suitable pay rise? You said you were getting 3%. You were offered at the beginning of the year. What is what you're after, Faye?
I personally would hope that we're able to match Scotland and Wales. I think England should be able to do that. They got 7% and 8%. So that, again, the main point here is that it's actually funded by central government, because as you probably know, teachers did get an offer of a 4.5% pay increase instead, but it was broadly rejected because it was not funded. So it's about making sure that whatever pay offer you do get is funded. Expect that if the government comes forward and gives a pay offer that is funded, teachers will accept it. I hope that it is equal to Scotland and Wales 7.
Faye, your signal's about to go. We thank you very much indeed.
All right, I'll just end it there because I've rabbited on long enough about how much I despise this individual. I thought Faye Curran, the teacher there, handled herself as well as could be expected in the face of such stupid questions and such a hostile idiot. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel as well, please, because that helps me out immensely. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you again soon.